a little something like.
Hello, what is up you guys? Welcome back to my channel. Today we are doing another video in our series on how to study abroad in South Korea, where I tell you everything that I wish I knew before going to South Korea to study, and also my honest tips, tricks, and opinions. So today's video is a highly requested video. It's going to be about where to stay while you're studying in Seoul. I actually decided to stay in an Airbnb instead of student housing, and today's video I'm going to tell you the pros and cons and if I regret my decision, stuff like that. So if that's something you're interested in, then keep on watching and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell so you can get notified on when I'm posting new videos. If you're new here, welcome to my channel and let's get started. I just wanted to show you guys something that I've been up to. So I've been making hats recently. I created this design by myself. I'll be providing the link in the description down below. So this trippy smiley face actually comes in 3 different colors. The dad hats come in 4 different colors, and the bucket hats come in 4 different colors too, in black, white, pink, or blue. And you can get a green, blue, or purple smiley face on it. They're super cute. They're such cute little gifts, and honestly I've just been wearing a lot of hats recently, and I just feel like they frame my face so well. So if you guys are interested, I will be providing the link down below, and let's get started. Okay, so just a little bit of background information about me. My name is Fiona. I studied abroad in Seoul, South Korea in the fall of 2018, so it's been a little bit over 2 years. It's something that I honestly think about every single day, and it's honestly changed my life. It was one of the best periods of my life, and I honestly just love talking about it, and there's so many things that I wish I knew before I went, and that is why I started this channel, so I can tell you guys all of those things so you guys will be more prepared than I was when I was there. Picking a place to live is just a little bit challenging just because, you know, A, you might have never been to that country before, B, you don't really know what anything looks like there, stuff like that. So hopefully this gives you some sort of insight into going a direction, either student housing or Airbnb, so that it's easier for you guys to decide where to live. So when I was deciding to study abroad in Seoul, I kind of had 2 options of where to stay. So the first option was either an Airbnb and the second was student housing. I personally chose to stay at an Airbnb. I stayed there for 4 months. So you actually can rent like Airbnb for a long extended period of time if you didn't know that. And my Airbnb actually came with a cleaner. So she would come in and clean every single week, so that was included in the $550. And yeah, I actually really liked my Airbnb. I will be linking it down below. I actually just checked and the price went a little bit down. It's $514 a month. I don't know if that's because of like Corona, stuff like that, but yeah. So right now I'm going to go into the pros and cons of staying in an Airbnb compared to staying at student housing. We're going to start with the Airbnb first, and then at the end I'm going to let you know my final thoughts about it. First, we're going to go through what I think are the pros of staying at an Airbnb in Seoul, South Korea when you study abroad in Korea. Okay, so the pros of living at an Airbnb. So if you live in an Airbnb, you will most likely have a kitchen, a refrigerator. It's most likely going to be bigger than the dorms, privacy than the dorms, and you will have more freedom than you will in the dorms. You can also invite your friends over. So let's say your friends from the States visit you, or from wherever you're from. You just meet someone and you invite them over, or your family visits you. Stuff like that. If you live in an Airbnb, your friends will be able to stay with you. So I had a couple friends who actually came and visited me. Shout out to you guys. When I was in Korea, and they actually slept in my Airbnb with me. We had like this little small mattress, and they were able to sleep with me. They slept over for like a week, and yeah, it was really fun. Next is you can kind of choose who you want to live with if you live in an Airbnb. So one of my friends, he actually came with me to study abroad in Korea. We came from the same school in New York, which is Binghamton. So we were both exchange students from Binghamton going to Korea. So we actually decided to stay together and live in the same Airbnb. So he was my roommate. So if you have an Airbnb, you can kind of choose who you want to live with because they can book like the same place as you. Also, cook food in your kitchen and eat at home. I personally never really cooked food or ate at home just because I felt like it was easier and more of an authentic experience for me to go and eat out and stuff like that. Plus, it wasn't too pricey, so I never really felt like I was really saving that much eating at home. But of course, if you're, hungry or like hungover and you want that occasional shin ramen, like it hits when you're at home. And the biggest thing for me is I got to choose the location of the Airbnb. That was really, really important to me because I actually wanted to live in a very central part of Seoul, to live in a very busy neighborhood, and I wanted to really be able to feel the city. So I actually lived near Dongdaemun. I absolutely loved living there. I lived near Dongdaemun and Myeongdong. I was only about a 20-minute bus ride or subway ride away from like Gangnam and stuff like that. So places where I would go at night, like to party. So it was really important for me to find an Airbnb that was close to everything, just to make it easier for me to like explore and stuff. So you guys may not know this, but actually Korea University is located in Annam, and Annam is not super, I don't want to say a central part of Seoul, but it's just not the neighborhood where all of the things are, like all of the pop-in fun things. So actually when we used to go out, my friends who lived in Annam, it would take them around 40 minutes to get home from the bar, from the clubs, from dinner, stuff like that, while it only took me 20 minutes to get home. Likewise, when I would go and fly out to other places like Japan, it was a lot easier for me to go to the airport because it would save about like 20 minutes compared to my friends who lived in Korea University who had to take different buses to get to the airline metro. Just the location of where everything was such a central part into why I just decided to choose to live in an Airbnb. The second big reason of why I chose to live in an Airbnb and not in student housing was because I wanted to kind of live more of an authentic Korean lifestyle, not an authentic Korean student lifestyle. Does that make sense? So I just felt like living in an Airbnb in Korea, in Seoul, was more of a lifestyle, like more of a lifestyle experience than me choosing to live in student housing. So location and the fact that I wanted to live a more authentic Korean lifestyle is the biggest reasons why I chose to stay at an Airbnb. Now that I've told you the pros of living in an Airbnb while studying abroad in Seoul, South Korea, I'm going to tell you the cons of staying in an Airbnb. So number one, you need to take the subway or the bus to school. So I used to take a 20-minute bus ride to school every day. 20 minutes for me was not that big of a deal, and I felt like the bus came a lot. So that part actually didn't really bother me. So the last part of my video I actually did not save. So here I am, different day, different outfit. I just think that the Airbnb cons are way more important than the Airbnb pros. So that's why I'm re-recording this for you guys. We last touched upon the fact that you have to take the subway or the bus to school if you live in an Airbnb. So the second con is that you have to feed yourself. So what I mean by this is that if you stay in the student dorms, there's resident halls or like lunchrooms where you can get fed. But if you stay at an Airbnb, you basically have to plan all your meals yourself. So you can't just like walk out of your dorm, get dinner, come back home and eat at home and stuff like that. You have to like go out and get your food. You have to plan what you're gonna eat, stuff like that. But just keep in mind that it's not a little bit harder, but it's a little bit more tedious to get food when you're living at an Airbnb. So the third con is Wi-Fi. So if you live on student housing, you will definitely for sure have good Wi-Fi. You know, you're gonna be connected to the school, to the dorms, stuff like that. But actually at my Airbnb, I had a lot of Wi-Fi issues. It's kind of weird because like South Korea is known for like one of the best Wi-Fis in the world. So it was weird that I was like having issues with my Wi-Fi. Like at 10 p.m. every night, I just would not have Wi-Fi and it just really sucked. I told my Airbnb host, but she didn't really do anything about it. Like she came in and she said that like the Wi-Fi is working, and then that was basically the end of the conversation. So just keep in mind, you may or may not have Wi-Fi issues. The fourth con is that it is a little bit less safe. So of course, staying at a dorm is way safer because there's like security guards, like people are kind of looking out for you. Everyone is your age, you know. When you live at an Airbnb, you know, you could get home at night, there could be an alleyway. But South Korea is one of the safest countries in the world. But just know that, you know, there's always going to be like a safety issue. There's always going to be a safety issue. If you're concerned about like being super safe, or your parents are really concerned, then I would consider staying at the dorms and not at an Airbnb. So the last con of staying in an Airbnb is the fact that you're not living with the other international students who are studying at your university for that semester. So it is harder to make friends. Not gonna lie to you guys, it is harder to make friends just because you guys aren't living with them. I remember like 3 weeks into the semester, I felt like everyone knew each other, but I knew no one. And it took me a little while to realize that the fact that I didn't know anyone and everyone knew each other is because they were all living together. So they were living in like the same floor, or like the same dorm, or they were roommates, or like same buildings, stuff like that. So like by staying with the other international students, like they got to bond with each other and like become friends with each other. So not saying that you can't make friends if you stay in an Airbnb. I'm just saying that it's a little bit harder. But Korea University has these like buddy programs, so where they split you guys into groups. There's like leaders of the groups and stuff like that, which are like Korea University students. And then the students actually take you guys out on like really fun dates. So like you guys will go like karaoke together, or you guys will go to a restaurant together with like your group. So that's like an easy way to make friends. And another way that you can make friends is like through classes, through group work, stuff like that. But it is a little bit more difficult to make friends with the other international students when you are living at an Airbnb instead of a dorm. Okay, and now we're gonna tune back into my other video. Tell you a little bit about the pros and cons of living in student housing. So this student housing that I'm talking about in particular pertains to Korea University. It may or may not be similar to other universities. I'm not honestly too sure. I think it's gonna be kind of the same. But these are just the pros and cons of living in student housing at Korea University. The pros are there is air conditioning. So if you're going in the summer, I would highly consider staying at the student dorms just because you're guaranteed to have air conditioning, and it gets super hot in the summer. My Airbnb actually did not have air conditioning. I went in the fall, so August wasn't super hot, but there were nights that were pretty hot and all we did was get a fan. So that's just something to take into consideration. Two, it's easy for you to get fed because you can just walk to the resident halls or the lunchrooms. If you live on campus, there's actually really good food near Korea University campus. There's like tonkatsu, there's bubble tea, there's ramen, there's actually really good food. So if you don't eat the resident hall foods, you'll still be okay. Three is that you can walk to the gym. So Korea University actually had a beautiful gym. There was like rock climbing, there was like a soccer field. I heard that there was like ice skating there, but I never really went there. But you can walk to the gyms super close to your dorms, so you don't have to worry about that. If you live in an Airbnb, you can either use the student gyms, that's what I did, or you can decide to go to a regular Korean gym. I didn't do that just because of the language barrier, and I just felt like it was going to be too hard for me to like find a gym near my house, so I just decided to work out after classes. Another thing is that there's washer, dryers, and TVs in the living room. I had a washer in my Airbnb, but I did not have a dryer. That was kind of a struggle because it would take like a whole day for my clothes to dry, instead of, you know, just being able to like pop it in a dryer and pick it up in like an hour. I also did not have a TV in my living room. The only TV I had was like my iPad. And the biggest pro of living in student housing is that you get to live with the other international students, and you're living a more Korean student lifestyle. So if that's what you want, if you are into that, you want to be a Korean student, if that is what you're searching for, then I would say live in student housing. So now we're gonna go into the cons of living in student housing. So I just felt like there was too many cons in living in student housing. I just felt like it was too strict, and that was one of the biggest reasons why I decided not to stay in student housing and live in an Airbnb. And now I'm gonna tell you what they are. No partying, no drinking, no smoking, and no visitors. So if your friends and family come to visit you, they're gonna need to get an Airbnb or a hotel. They cannot stay with you. And then depending on which resident halls that you live in, there actually might be curfew, and that was one of the biggest reasons why I didn't want to stay in an Airbnb, just because of curfew. And what curfew is basically you need to come back to your room by a certain time. So I'm not sure what it is, but you need to come back to your dorm by that certain amount of time. Otherwise, they're just gonna lock all the doors. If they lock all the doors, there's like a security guard downstairs. I'm not really sure how it works. This is just from what I've heard. But there is like a security guard downstairs, or you need to just wait until the dorms open in the morning and then you go back in. So that was just a huge no-no for me, just because I knew that I wanted to have a lot of fun in Korea, so I didn't want to be limited in when I was going home, I was gonna do kind of things like that. So no refrigerator or a kitchen. So this was like a big thing for my friends who lived in student housing, just because they weren't able to cook, they weren't able to really bring like even takeout back home, just because they didn't have like a refrigerator, so they didn't want it to like rotten or anything. I think there is like a kitchen and refrigerator downstairs that everyone kind of shares, but just on the most part you won't have a refrigerator or a kitchen. Another con is that you don't get to choose who you're living with. So not a lot of the dorms are actually single bedrooms. Most of them are either doubles or triples. So doubles means you're going to be living with one other person, and triple means you're going to be living with two other people. So this is actually an easy way to be to make friends and like be close to people, just because you'll have roommates and stuff. But I have heard like some roommate horror stories that my friends have told me while they were staying at student housing. So that just isn't something that I was interested in. Just like living with someone else, I wanted to have my own room, I wanted to have privacy, and that's why I chose to live in a Airbnb instead of a dorm. But if you don't care about those things, stuff like that, or like you think it's gonna be like a really good chance to like meet friends and stuff, then I would say go ahead and stay at the student dorms. And last but not least, the biggest thing for me again was just the location of it. I just felt like Annam, where Korea University is located, it just wasn't central or busy or city enough for me, I guess. I wanted to live like where the core was, where the action was happening, where the fancy restaurants were, where the partying was, where the cafes are, just stuff like that. I just wanted to be where everything was. But just for me, coming from like New York City, I just wanted to stay in like the center where all the action was in Seoul. So that's why I decided to stay in an Airbnb. Right now I'm gonna break down the prices of staying at either an Airbnb or student housing for you guys. So when I stayed at my Airbnb, it was $550 a month. I just checked the same Airbnb that I stayed at, and right now it is $514 a month. So I'm not really sure if it's because of Corona right now or the price just went down. So if you study abroad, specifically in Korea University, there's two different types of student housing. There is Annam Global House, and there's also CJ International Housing. CJ International Housing was a way better option. I think it was way cleaner and bigger, and it was just a newer building, but it does get a little bit competitive to get the student housing. So I've actually known people who applied for student housing, didn't get it, had to stay at an Airbnb. I think it honestly just depends. If you decide to stay at the resident halls, CJ International Housing for a single is actually $426. If you stay in a double, it is around $337 a month, so a way cheaper alternative. And actually, if you stay at Annam Global House, it's even cheaper. So if you stay at Global House single bed, it's actually $337 a month. And if you actually stay at Annam Global House and you get a triple, which means you have two roommates, it's actually only $187 a month. Honestly, I think that these prices are super reasonable, and it's actually a super affordable place. It makes like studying abroad in Korea so affordable. You can honestly get a place for less than $500 a month. You might not be living alone, but if the price is what's stopping you from going, then I don't think it really matters if you have a roommate or not. So final thoughts. I have no regrets staying at an Airbnb, honestly. The whole friends thing, like making new friends, you can make new friends. It's just a little bit harder if you stay at an Airbnb. So it's not that you can't make new friends, it's just that you don't have the proximity aspect to help you in making new friends. But it's not to say that you can't make new friends if you stay in an Airbnb. And I would honestly say, like, this sounds kind of cheesy, but the biggest friend that I made while staying at the Airbnb was myself. I just really got to know myself when I was studying abroad in Korea. And me just not having a lot of international friends made me do a lot of things alone. So I went to Taiwan alone, I went to Japan alone twice. I just did a lot of things alone. Took myself out on a lot of dates, and I freaking loved it. Like, I loved doing that. Final thoughts, I have no regrets staying at an Airbnb. Absolutely loved the location of my Airbnb. I just liked how easy it was for me to get home. I liked the convenience of it, and I really liked living the more authentic, like, Korean lifestyle as opposed to the more authentic student lifestyle. So for you, I think that if you don't feel like you're super ready, then I would definitely stay at the dorms. There's no shame in staying at the dorms. You might even love it. You'll have the time of your life, make a lot of friends. And staying at the dorm doesn't mean that you can't, like, go out and see the rest of Korea. It doesn't mean anything like that. It's just that you would have to put more work into doing that, is what I would say. But yeah, I really hope this video helped you. These are just things that I honestly wish that I knew before going and, like, picking where to stay. Just honestly, my honest opinions and, like, tips and tricks. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you like it. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and hit the notification bell to see when my next videos are coming out. And follow me on my Instagram for more travel inspiration. Again, if you guys have any topics that you really want me to go into detail about, please just comment them below, and I will do my absolute best to answer them for you. Next up, I'm gonna make a video on what to pack when you go to Korea, just things that I think that you'll really need. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope this was helpful, and bye.